Spare. Hoovering. Hoovering traditionally is thought of post-relationship, where the narcissist reappears and tries to resurrect that relationship with you. Sometimes it's done after you've escaped, sometimes it's after the narcissist disengaged from you. That's the traditional view of the Hoover. But a narcissist hoovers you at lots of different stages, and I explain that in my excellent book, Black Hole, which you can read on Amazon or in the Knowledge Vault. When we're seducing you, we're hoovering you. We're not with you all of the time, although sometimes that can happen. But where you're away at work and you're getting those text messages during the day, or all of the I miss you, can't wait to see you again, you're amazing, etc., all of those are hoovers, seductive hoovers of a benign nature. During the relationship, when we are physically apart from you, when we call you, that's a hoover. When we text you, that's a hoover. When we put something on social media involving you, that's a hoover. There are lots of different types of hoover, and they take place at different points during the narcissistic dynamic. And here we get insight into how Harry's wife goes about hoovering Harry. He explains that they text half the night, so already she's showing a sense of entitlement by this incessant messaging. She's demonstrating that she is showing lack of boundary recognition by texting him at unsociable hours, and showing a lack of accountability for her behaviours. He accordingly groans when the alarm rang early at dawn and he had to get onto Sir Keith's boat. And he then thought that a sailing race was the only way that he's going to be able to put down his phone. Notice the impact that she's already having on him. As his emotional thinking rises because of his addiction to narcissists, he's compelled to keep interacting with her. Turns up at a host's house, barely says hello, sits in the guest room, text, has dinner, reappears, text, does so through the night. And he explains that Sir Keith's boat was called Invictus, and there was a crew of 11, and it was a 5-hour race that took them around the Needles. He then talks about sailing previously with Henners when he tried to capsize their little laser boat for laughs, and he was saying, "Don't let me drown now before my big date." And he then explained that there was no onboard loo. And he explained that he held it in for as long as he could until he had no choice and then swung his body over the side. But he still couldn't pee because of stage fright. The whole crew were looking. And then he went back to his post, hung from the ropes, and peed himself. He writes, "Finally, I went back to my post, sheepishly hung from the ropes and peed my pants. We really do need to know that." And then he thinks, wow, if she could see me now. Again, thinking about Harry's wife. Already, his emotional thinking has soared to a level whereby she is apparently infecting his thoughts, and he feels it appropriate to share with us the fact that he's peed his pants. Their boat won their class and came in second overall, but apparently he barely paused to celebrate because his only concern was jumping into the water, washing the pee off his trousers, and racing back to London. What, did you not bring a spare pair of pants? What a dope. And then he makes reference to heading straight off to London, obviously, on his date. The traffic's a nightmare, and he texted her to explain that he was running a bit late, and she was already there. He apologised. She said it's okay. He was worrying that she might leave. Again, why would you think that? It again is the way that the narcissist infects the victim to start worrying about such matters, so that he thinks, well, she may just get up and depart, and therefore he's going to lose out. He realised that he wouldn't be able to run through the streets of London. It would cause a scene, and that if he was seen high-stepping it towards Soho House, that would blow out of the water any opportunity for privacy. And he didn't think it was appropriate to text all of this to her, so he just didn't answer, which he said, which surely irritated her. It will have done. It will have wounded her. He, at this juncture, is a non-intimate tertiary source, possibly secondary source because of the level of interaction that they've had with one another, so most likely non-intimate secondary source, and his failure to respond would have wounded. It might be that he was a virtual intimate partner secondary source. We don't know the precise details of the text, if there was any spicy poontang being talked about or exchanged in those texts, then he would be a virtual intimate partner secondary source because there hadn't been any laying of lips so far. But if we assume that he's a non-intimate secondary source at this juncture, his failure to respond would have wounded her. However, it wouldn't have caused her to lash out in a malign way because her narcissism would essentially keep that under control because he's in the seduction period. And therefore, it would cause her to think, a little bit irritating that he's late, but kind of sweet as well also, because it wants to keep him in the game as a prospective intimate partner primary source. He explains he turns up half an hour later and apologises profusely, and she said she forgave him. He said that she was having some kind of beer. He asked for a Peroni. He said he didn't really want a beer, but it seemed easier. Not really sure why that is, but anyway. He describes what she was wearing, a black sweater, jeans and heels. He said he knew nothing about clothes, but I knew she was chic. Well, if you know nothing about clothes, how do you know she's chic? Then again, I knew she could make anything look chic. Harry's wife again, writing about herself with her own grandiosity, because the fact is, we all know from repeated appearances of Kermit Goes to Church, Fridge by Valentino, Tent by Army Surplus, Hyacinth Bouquet's settee cover, Teacup by Royal Doulton, One of Our Jars is Missing, Overripe Burst Tomato Lady, Chairman Mao Goes to New York, The Bouncing Berry of Harlem, and other Facade disasters, that she's far from chic. Yes, there are occasions when what she wears doesn't look too bad at all, but there are many occasions where she looks terrible. And to suggest that she could make anything look chic, even a bivvy bag, is a load of nonsense, and is either a consequence of his emotional thinking causing him to write this, or more likely, the intervention of Harry's wife. He then talks about the chasm between internet and reality. He'd seen so many photos of her from fashion shoots, but here she was in the flesh, no frills, no filter, and even more beautiful. Oh, it's amazing. How could she be more beautiful? I thought she was already so stunning. He then explains that he was trying to understand what was happening to his circulatory and nervous systems, because, yeah, that's what we all do when we first meet somebody. He explained that conversation, pleasantries, the Queen's English all became a challenge. What do you mean all became a challenge, Harry? They usually are for you, you dimwit. Apparently she filled the gap. Hardly surprising, shows her sense of entitlement. She talked about London. Apparently she was here all the time. I suspect that was a lie. Sometimes she just left her luggage at Soho House for weeks. They stored it without question. The people there were like family. Grandiosity, sense of entitlement. And then Harry thought, well, you're in London all the time. How come I've never seen you? He felt that he should have been informed about her presence. He asked her what brings her here so often. Oh, classic chat-up line. And she explains it was friends and business. Talks about acting was a main job, but she was a lifestyle writer, travel writer, corporate spokesperson, entrepreneur, activist, yeah, right, model, sure, okay. As they used to say back in the day, I'm growing a beard, chini recon. She'd been all over the world, lived in various countries, worked for the US Embassy in Argentina, etc. And she apparently said it was all part of the plan, which was to help people do some good, be free, facade management. Waitress reappeared. She told her name was Misha. East European accent, shy smile, many tattoos. Misha talked about her tattoos, and then Misha left. Conversation really started to flow. Initial awkwardness was gone. But then time was up, and she said sorry, she had to go. And he was, go so soon? She said, I have dinner plans. He cursed the fact that he was late and got to his feet, and there was a brief goodbye hug, assertion of control. Through physical means, he said he'd take care of the bill, and therefore she said she'd foot the bill for some thank you flowers to Violet. And then she was gone. This, of course, is demonstrative of the way that she maintained some mystery by only being there for a short period of time, but also that her narcissism recognised that he was very much under control. And the manner by which she has been interacting with him and his responses, probably there with his tongue hanging out and hanging on her every word, her narcissism will have drunk up that fuel, but also recognised, of course, that he is coming under control, and therefore it wasn't a problem for her to then leave at that juncture. So, more hoovering of Harry, and he doesn't realise that the spider is weaving its web around him, and which is quite apt, because in the next section we're going to talk about the fact that he's prey. Join me there.